We certainly lead at CUNA Mutual Group with it being the right thing to do for humanity and for our workforce, this focus on diversity, equity, inclusion. But the business case is also extremely clear. We think about this in kind of two parts for our organization. First, more employees are looking to work for organizations that align with their personal values. Equitable workplaces really elevate organizations to a position of competitive recruiting, which is incredibly important in this environment. And second, it's not enough to just get folks in the door. Once they're in your organization, it becomes an opportunity to help them thrive, whether it's flexible work schedules or a culture that rewards going above and beyond to understand one another, to connect across differences. Retaining talent is easier in a workplace that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. So building equitable internal policies and procedures within credit unions is incredibly important. So it's not enough to just say that you're committed to diversity, equity, inclusion. Employees are looking for that commitment in policies and procedures. That strategy really needs to be twofold. It rolls into the opportunity to create new policies and procedures that are more equitable, and it's reviewing and adjusting legacy policies and procedures that need some revision. Some examples of some new policies that we've been looking at CUNA Mutual Group is flexible work arrangements, virtual work arrangements, as well as COVID-19 precautions, and just some very tangible ones around things like dress code. As you're reviewing legacy policies and procedures, it's really important to ask a couple questions through that revision process. It comes down to who benefits and who is burdened by how this particular policy or procedure is written. And is this policy reflective of the employee voice? And lastly, does this policy work for all employees? Who's not at the table that should be, to help kind of formulate those policies for the future? Structural changes within an organization are incredibly important to make sure that uh, this sustainable culture of DEI sticks within your credit union. I think credit unions have an opportunity to take a look at the makeup of their teams, right, from a diversity perspective, more than the org chart itself. What's really important is, and you should ask yourself, whose voice is not represented here? I think it's also really important that we're empowering diversity, equity, and inclusion teams with the muscle to ask questions across the organization, enhance the inclusivity of existing programs and projects, or to help construct employee resource groups. First and foremost, my number one recommendation for credit union decision makers as they're working on their diversity, equity, inclusion journey is to approach this with a mindset shift front of mind. Top-down command and control does not create a culture of inclusion or inclusivity. But really, it takes time. This work is a journey, and it's important along that journey to certainly celebrate the wins, whether you see them as small wins or not. But it's just as important to acknowledge those opportunities when maybe you got it wrong. So a little bit of transparency, a little bit of vulnerability along this path of diversity, equity, inclusion, I think sets the tone across the credit union that we're committed to this journey, and that there's going to be mistakes along the way. We'll certainly commit to repairing harm when's needed, but that we're committed to doing better each and every day.